This weekend, we finally finished a project we've been thinking of for years now, and that is to replace our old, dingy, half-rotten front step with a big, beautiful new deck. And we are so excited to finally have this finished because, like I said, it was only a step before. It was as wide as these stairs, and now we have a big, beautiful new space that is, I think, 14 by 8 feet. It's also afternoon shade, which is amazing. And clearly a big, beautiful deck needs a big, beautiful, brand new garden. So this is 2 days of work, properly digging up and amending the soil, which I didn't really do in my other perennial beds. And that is what happens when you are a fairly young, new, and overexcited gardener, is you dig up the grass, you loosen the soil a little bit, you get overexcited picking up a whole bunch of plants and stuff them wherever. But then you end up with mediocre growth, you end up with a lot of weeds, and you end up with what we have fairly compacted or semi-compacted clay soil. And clay is not terrible. It actually holds on to nutrition and moisture fairly well. But if it doesn't have a lot of organic matter in it, it becomes rock hard when it is dry and impossible to get weeds out without snapping off the roots, which means they're just going to grow back anyway. So we just finished this as of yesterday, and there's still a little bit of work to do, but I've already been decorating. All of these pumpkins and squash I grew myself. Those ferns were on our old deck, but this is all brand new space. From where this railing starts, this is all brand new space. We had this furniture already. There is the lemon tree, and we've been spending an awful lot of time sitting out here enjoying our beautiful view. Now, all of these bulbs. I already have a planting plan for this big, beautiful garden down here. I have some perennials, I have a lot of bulbs, and I might do a little bit of direct seeding for spring as well. So what I'm gonna do is at the very back, I'm gonna start with some daffodils, and I have two varieties here. One is Bridal Crown. Bridal Crown is 14 inches tall. It's small, many small flowers per stalk. They're gonna go towards the back because they're gonna bloom first. So that would be these. These are the Bridal Crown. I also have, I'm probably not gonna pronounce this right, but let's go with Delnashaw. These ones have a creamy pink tone to them, and they're doubles. So I'm hoping these two daffodils will look really good together. I then have two varieties of tulips that are gonna go closer to the front, and these are gonna bloom much later. These ones are both mid-season flowering, and we have Mango Charm, which are 18 inches, and Cream Flag, which are 20 inches tall. So those will make a really good mix, I think. These are part of the 2,800 bulbs I bought to plant for cut flowers, but that's a lot, and I think I can sacrifice some for the landscape. Now, I also have lily bulbs. I have Easy Vanilla Lily, which are gonna be in here as perennials. I also bought these for cutting, but I just think they're gonna look really nice here, and I do wanna have some really beautifully manicured gardens at the front of the house, especially with this nice new deck. So I'm gonna sacrifice these and get some more in the spring. I have 6, I think, Easy Vanilla Lilies. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, and then I have Leucojum Gravity Giant. Now I'm really excited about these. These look like snowdrops, but they bloom much later and they're much bigger. These are 24 inches tall. So I went to visit the gardens of the lovely woman who teaches the Master Gardeners courses that I'm taking, and she had these. They look just like snowdrops, much taller. It was much too late in the season, so I said, I need to know what those are. Luckily, I found them for sale from Vessie's, which is in PEI, where I often order smaller quantities of bulbs every fall, sometimes in the spring. The daffodils and tulips all come from Van Noort. I have a wholesale account there. You have to have, I think, a $500 minimum. That's in Canadian, but those are for the spring cutting garden. So these ones also should perennialize, but I should be able to use those for cutting as well. So those, I believe, were blooming with the tulips, which is fantastic. So hello, Molly. So I think I have 48 of these. There's 12 in a bag. I'm going to plant at least half of them right here. 2, 3, 4, yes, and I'm gonna leave the other half. I also have peony roots in here, which are gonna be planted somewhere else. And those I'm gonna hope to plant within the next few days too. Hi, Molly. So I have my planting plan. It has been unbelievably gorgeous. We have had 20-degree days for the last week. That's, I think, 72 in Fahrenheit. But how lucky was that we had family coming up for only 3 days to help us build this deck, and it was gorgeous weather. We had a big party putting this thing up, and then Jeff and I took 2 more days to just finish off some little details. So since I've already prepared the soil, now we get to go to the fun part and plant all of these. One thing I didn't mention is a beautiful tiger lily that I had growing in a pot, and I also have some purple Veronica that I grew from seed. That's going to be the perennial focus of this bed, that and the lilies. And those are going to be sort of centered, I think. So I'm going to space those out first, and then we'll have an idea of where the bulbs need to go. So there's what the Veronica looks like in bloom. That is lovely. And because these were seed grown this year in these pots, I don't know what the final height is going to be, but some of these are close to 24 inches. So they should be nice and lush and green next year and fill in this space really well. I also have this little shrub that I may, and I forget the name of this off the top of my head, but I'll look it up and put it on the screen. I think I'm going to put this right here in the corner because it is nice to have something evergreen throughout the winter months. The Veronica still looks good. It'll look good past the frost, but it will likely die back to the ground in the winter. So it would be nice to have something right on the corner, yeah, that will fill out this space and then look good all throughout the winter until the bulbs start to bloom again in the spring. So the rest of this corner, this is all going to get filled in and mulched at a later date. I actually split a truckload of mulch with the neighbor that's coming within the next 2 weeks. So the rough spots along the side of the deck and the gap underneath the skirting of the deck, that's all going to be filled in with mulch. So I'm actually going to move these for now because we're going to put those daffodils in first. So this here is the difference between, I don't know if it's the native soil or fill from when the house was built, but this clay, which is just like a brick. And I learned the hard way, trying to do all my other gardens no dig, just laying compost on top because it'll work its way in. Well, when I dig now, I find layers and notice that the compost and amendments that I had been laying on top have not really worked their way in. So that is why I spent 2 days digging, and these clumps will eventually break up, but I know that I have a good substantial amount of compost and manure dug down. I think I got 16 inches, so that's going to help speed up the process and eliminate a lot of those problems that I've been finding in my original beds. I have my daffodils. I think that came from this one. So the bridal crown are a little shorter, so I'm going to put the Leucojum in the back. They're not a lot taller, just a little bit. So what I'm going to do is do bundles of 7. Daffodils are usually easy perennials. I'm going to put them at least 2 inches apart so they have a little bit of room to multiply, but they'll still likely need digging up and dividing in 4 to 5 years' time. Bulbs in general like to be planted at 2 to 3 times their depth. So if the bulb is about this tall, then we need about twice that amount of soil on top of them. That's usually a good guide. Give or take. It can be a little shallower or a little deeper. Generally, if your ground freezes solid, deeper is a little bit better. So I'm doing clumps of the Leucojum towards the back, and then that's the bridal crown in the front, slightly staggered, not significantly further up, but I'm going to keep going all the way down. So there's going to be lots of insulation on top of these bulbs, but they are very hardy. We are zone 6 here. That is no problem for daffodils. Oh, I'm sorry, lavender. Generally doing bunches of 7. I'm going to put 9 here just because the hole's a little bigger and I have a few left over. So that's it. That's all for the daffodils on this side. I'm going to cover them up, and then I think I'm going to do the lilies next. Now, I'm also going to press this down because I don't really want squirrels or other creatures digging this up. If I don't do that, it's likely going to settle anyway over the winter. This way I can see where it's settling and I can add a little more if I need to. Okay, the wind is picking up. So these are easy vanilla lilies. They are 28 to 35 inches. They will bloom way later than the daffodils, and I want to put these behind my perennials. After lilies bloom, their stalks don't always look the prettiest. It's always good to have something planted in front. These wood shavings count as mulch, by the way. So everything's going in here. Now these are not very big bulbs, and I've learned from experience ordering from this company that sometimes it takes 2 years for these to bloom, which is okay. The price wasn't bad. Now, for instant impact, you'd want to plant a couple of these. Give them at least 2 or 3 inches of room. This bulb will get much, much bigger. But I'm going to plant them individually because I want them to have the room to multiply over time. And the same rule, at least twice the depth of the bulb. And because this bulb is going to get bigger, I'm going to put about 3 to 4 inches of soil on top of this. There, and that's going to have no trouble at all pushing up through those 3 or 4 inches of soil on top. Actually, I'm going to do, so what I should have done is put the Veronica and then put the bulbs directly in the back. Yeah, let's do that. Okay, 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6. Yeah, perfect. So there will be one lily between each of the Veronica, but slightly to the back. That's going to work perfectly. So I grew these from seed, all in one small tray, separated them in July. I could even divide this further, but I think I'm going to leave it as is. I'm going to cut all of the foliage off probably in a week or so. We've had such mild weather, I'm not going to do it right away. But what I am going to do is loosen the roots slightly. If this is any indication of how well these grow, I may be moving and dividing them every 2 years or so. I'm planting these a tiny bit proud of the soil, and by that I mean the top of where the soil was in the pot is just slightly above the soil level in the ground, because I want to put a fairly thick layer of mulch and I don't want to bury the plant. There's going to be so many bulbs in this bed, it would be really easy for me to add some annuals, which I think is going to be my plan in my perennial beds, at least for the next few years, while I have my neighbor. While I have a lot of amending of soil to do in my original beds. So I have 6 of these pots. I think these are close to gallon pots, which depending on the plant is anywhere between $20 and $50 to buy new, so I probably saved myself at least $150. By the way, don't forget to subscribe so you can see all these bloom in the spring. We only have to wait 8 more months. Oh, that one might be the roughest one yet. The center, though, is a lot more firm than the outside, so there's no reason to assume that this won't grow. Holy, I can divide this, maybe. That was a bit rough, but it'll be fine. And now I have 2. So same as the other ones, I am mounding these up slightly because there's going to be a good layer of mulch here. Oh, there. So this will spread out but stay pretty low. which is good because that means I can trim it and it won't block anything important. That is looking so good already. It's nice to see all that green at the end of the season instead of just bare soil. The Leucojum next, which I think are going to bloom alongside the tulips, but they're taller than the tulips. Oh, and they're good sized bulbs too. There is the Leucojum, very similar to the daffodils actually, but I don't know. We may get multiple flowers from each bulb. I have 24. I'm going to put a small clump in between each of these Veronica, I think, in between but slightly in front, and then we'll have a huge, nice, almost 1 foot wide trench to plant all of the rest of the tulips. And then if I decide to pull the tulips for cut flowers, they'll be right here all in one spot in the front, and I'll be able to plant something else there once they come out. So I'm just going to do clumps of 3 of these because I don't have a ton, and I do want to put some in other places too. And also leaving about another bulb's width in between. That'll give them room to multiply. And I'm planning for this planting to be in place anywhere between 3 and 5 years, depending on the growth. If things are filling in really quick, we might have to do some editing before that, but that's my plan. When the ground is properly prepared, this goes so fast. But I've only done maybe 200 today. Probably another 100 tulips around the front, but only 2,500 left to go. Okay, I now have a trench about 4 inches deep, which should be lots. I've decided that I am going to use the majority of these for cut flowers, so I'm going to jam them really close together, and I'll show you how I do that. What usually ends up happening is not all the flowers are of sellable condition. Some of them I usually end up leaving. So what I suspect is going to happen is I'll pull all the good ones, and there will be a few left over that I'll leave in here to perennialize, and that should work out just fine. Tulips for cut flowers end up being planted egg carton style. I'm just trying to remember which ones are the taller ones, and those will go in the back. So this is a tulip bulb. It's slightly bigger. It's a little different looking than a daffodil bulb. The pointy end is where your shoot will come out, and then the bottom flat, it's not usually 100% flat, mostly flat area is where the roots are going to come from. And this time of year, the soil is still warm enough that these will recognize the moisture in the ground and put down roots, and that's what you want. You want them to establish really well, and then tulips generally need a cold period of anywhere between 8 and I think 16 weeks before they will bloom. So you don't have to worry about them sprouting and blooming early if we get a particularly warm fall. Anytime after early October is usually just fine for planting tulips. Don't actually have a lot of the mango charm, so go for it. Everything. It's funny how finishing one project makes you want to do a whole bunch more. We're also painting the door. I'm just covering up the last of my tulips. I ran out a couple of feet before I thought I would, but I'm going to push this bamboo stake in case I want to plant anything over to the left. I'll know where the tulips stop, because you know me, I'm likely going to find more things. I think that's it. Now, all I have to do is mulch it, probably just the back half since most of these tulips are going to come out. But now I think I'm going to go have a cup of coffee on my new deck. Thanks so much for watching.